Good morning, students. Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys had a very relaxing Labor Day and you're back and ready to get started learning even more about simple expressions. As you guys know, I am not here this week. I am enjoying the beach because I didn't get to go during our summer break. So I'm there with my family right now. But don't worry, we've got some great lessons coming up this week all about simple expressions. And the day's going to feel just like if we were going live. You're still going to have a lesson from me where we'll take notes and practice problems. You'll also have an activity that I'll want you to do, as well as an OYO assignment to complete. So this video is the lesson for today. What are you going to need? Well, you're going to need your math journal, a pencil, a highlighter, and a pen of some kind. And try to make the pen color different from black or brown because that looks too much like a pencil. So if you need to, pause this video, go get those supplies, and then press play, and we'll get started with our lesson. All right, open up to the next clean page and label the top simple expressions, as well as today's date, September 8th. We're going to jump right in talking about what are simple expressions. Well, they're just another way that we can write problems. And when we talk about simple expressions, typically we're talking about problems with more than one operation, but a simple expression could just have a single operation, like 3 plus 5. That's a simple expression. And we're used to hearing 3 plus 5 and writing it out in numbers. But this standard is all about being able to read an expression written in words and write it as numbers, or read an expression written as numbers and to write it as words. So, what are we going to be able to do? We can write math equations with numbers and words. So that is what we are going to be doing with our simple expressions standard. And go ahead and just put a box around that and makes it pop out a little bit more in your notes. All right, once you have that written, we're going to create a table to help us think about some words that we might see to represent addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. All right, so our table across is going to have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So let's think of some words that we can use that represent addition. Well, the first one that probably comes to your mind is add, right? Another one that I often think about is increase. More is one that students often think of. Those are kind of the big three. If you have others that are coming to mind, feel free to add them in your notes as well. For subtraction, first one that comes to my mind, subtract. How about minus? Well, we have increase, so what about decrease? We have more, so what about less? Good. And sometimes we see less than as well. If you have others, go ahead and add them in as well. All right, now we get to multiplication. The first one that comes to mind, we've got add, subtract, multiply, right? But probably the one we say most often is times. And I bet these aren't ones you've thought of, but we're going to see them in our simple expressions. We might see double. And when you see double, we know that that tells us to multiply by what? 2. Very good. Times 2. Well, along those same lines, we might also see triple, which tells us to do what? Multiply by 3. Good job. Again, if you have others, go ahead and add them in. And then for division, there's not as many with division that I could think of. Of course, I thought divide. And split evenly is another one. And if you have others, you can add them down. So I'm going to kind of finish out my chart, and I am going to leave some extra spaces. That way, if we come across other words that we see in problems that we want to add into our notes, we can. So just leaving some extra spaces there. That very bottom row right here, go ahead and section that one off. We're going to put some pretty important words in this section here. These are the words that tell us you need to find an answer to an addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division problem. They're the vocabulary words that we looked at on Friday, and you need to get them memorized as far as what they mean. So for addition, I'm going to close off up here as well. The word that tells us to do an addition problem is sum. Sum means the answer to an addition problem. Subtraction, the word we're looking for is difference. Multiplication, product. Division's got a funky one. It's called quotient. It's a fun word to say. Sum, difference, product, quotient. Vocabulary words you need to make sure you know for this standard. Now, the reason why we section those out as being just a little bit more important is because when we see these words, it tells us we have to solve this part of the equation first. And so when we're writing it out in numbers, we're going to put parentheses around it. So let's draw a little arrow. All right, and we're going to say use parentheses with these words. Use parentheses with these words. Let's look at some examples to see what I mean by that. Number 1. The sum of 5 and 8 times 2. Remember, if at any point you need to pause the video to write, go ahead and pause it, write it, and then press play to come back. The sum of 5 and 8 times 2. Well, we can see one of those key vocabulary words, sum. So get out your pen, your colored pen, and I want you to underline sum. Okay? Sum tells us that we need to do addition. So we need to find the sum of 5 and 8 times 2. The sum of 5 and 8 times 2. So sum is addition. What are we adding? We're adding 5 and 8. So let's write that first. Okay? Sum of 5 and 8, there it is, times 2. Well, we know what times mean. It means multiplication. All right, so that's the sum of 5 and 8 times 2, right? No. Why? Why isn't that going to work for the expression that we have written? Because of the word sum. The sum of 5 and 8 times 2. Sum says solve this first. We have to add 5 and 8 before we multiply by 2, because sum means answer to an addition problem. So in other words, it's saying find the answer of 5 plus 8 and then multiply that by 2. In this problem, using the order of operations, what would I have to do first? Yeah, I would have to multiply 8 times 2. That is not what this problem is saying. It says find the answer to the addition problem, then multiply by 2. So the only way for us to do addition before multiplication is if we add in our parentheses. The parentheses make this problem complete. Notice I used my pen to make the parentheses. Because sum says put this addition problem, 5 and 8, inside parentheses so it comes first. Does that make sense? Let's look at another one. This problem says 6 divided by the product of 3 and 2. So we see another one of our vocabulary words. Let's underline it with our pen. Product. Well, we know that product means multiplication. So this tells us that we're going to need to multiply. 6 divided by the product. Okay, well, I also see division. I'm going to go ahead and write that out so I know. 6 divided by the product of 3 and 2. Well, let's start with the product of 3 and 2. All right, well, that's 3 times 2. The product of 3 and 2. 6 divided by the product. 6 divided by the answer of 3 times 2. So I need to put my 6 in front because it comes in front in my words. 6 divided by. If it had said the product of 3 and 2 divided by 6, 6 would have come at the end, but it says 6 divided by. So 6 divided by, now it says the product. If I leave it like it is now, 6 divided by 3 times 2, what would I do first? Right, I would do 6 divided by 3. That's not what this problem is saying. This problem is saying 6 divided by the product, the answer to the multiplication problem, which means I need to solve this first. Well, order of operations says dad comes first, solve dad first. Unless we bring in Papa parentheses. Now we're going to find 3 times 2 first and then do 6 divided by the answer or the product. So when we see these words, sum, difference, product, quotient, it tells us we need to use parentheses with these words. Put parentheses around that part of the equation. All right, so that's all we're going to do in this first video, but we have a second video where we're going to practice this a little bit more. You'll need to print off the first page of the notes PDF that I've given you in the lesson resources if you have a printer. If not, don't worry about it. You'll just have to handwrite it. I'll see you in the next video.